Hello everybody, it's Carol Garrison with Carol's Creative Escape. Today is February 6th and I'm excited to be sharing with you a diorama fold featuring the new stamp set called Sea Turtle, which is in the new mini catalog. It is found on page 29 and this is just a standalone stamp set. There's no dies or anything that go with it. And the cool part about this stamp set is it's a reversible stamp set. Now, if you've watched any of my videos for any length of time in the recent past, you're going to know that if I have anything that's got to do with lighthouses, sea animals, ocean, that type of thing, I'm probably going to be purchasing that stamp set. So when I saw this sea turtle, I knew I had to get it. I was just really excited to see it, and when I saw this fun fold, I knew I wanted to create this card. Now, I actually made another card using this fold and stamp set in my weekly Make It Monday video, and to be honest, I did not like my card. And I think if you watch the video, you're going to be able to tell that. And so I said, I am going to be coming up with a different card for this because I know in my head what I wanted. And so today what I'm doing is making this video so that I can share with you the card that I really wanted to make yesterday, and I just couldn't get it to pull together. Sometimes that happens. It is now sitting in my recycling bin because I didn't like it that much, and that's okay. Sometimes that happens in the creative process here. So I'm excited to be sharing this. I will show you real quickly how this reversible stamp works, just in case you've got any questions on that. And then I'm going to go on and share with you both measurements and instructions on how to make this card. So I do recommend that you go find a piece of paper and pencil if you don't already have one, because there are a lot of measurements related to making this card, and I want to make sure that you're able to get them all written down. And as in the past, I'm also going to encourage you to be sure that you write or create a template for this fold, because I think it's one of those that it helps to have some of this done so that you can go back and look at it when you want to recreate the card, that type of thing. It's a very fun fold, and today's card did turn out how I envisioned it. I'm also going to be showing you a technique for adding color, and that is called, in my high-tech vocabulary, the splatter technique. I don't really know what the name of it is, but I'm going to show you how to do that too, because it's a great way to create your own visual for designer series paper if you don't have any that quite go with what you're looking for. I opted to do that because I am also featuring a color today that will be available in some shape or form beginning March 1st, and then based on past history with colors coming back and that sort of thing, I think in the next annual catalog we're going to see this color here as well. And one of the reasons I'm sharing it with you today is this is really my favorite color, one of my favorite colors, and I'm so happy that it's coming back and is probably going to be part of our color series for a few years anyhow, if we're lucky. I have nothing in writing that says that. That's just my hope that that's going to happen. And so I'll let you know about that color too as I start working with it. And again, if it's something that you're interested in right now, the only way you could get it is to sign up to be a demonstrator and include the current online product offering that's available. That includes this color, at least in the designer series paper, and it'll be available to everyone, whether they're a demonstrator or a customer, come March 1st as well. So I'm just going to throw that information out there. If you have any questions, just drop me a line, make a comment, and I will get back to you with more information on that if you have any questions. So let me start just real quick by sharing with you how to make or how to use these reversible stamps. And I want to make sure, I thought I had pulled out a piece of scrap paper, and doesn't this always happen? I think I'm all ready and I go live and I find out I'm not ready. Oh well. let me just grab a piece of scrap paper. I'm using very vanilla. It doesn't really matter. So with these stamps, they're all considered reversible. So when you look at the stamp case, you see each of these that are gray. And basically what we're doing to get this gray shape is you've got the one side of your stamp that has the texture and the detail of the image, and then the other side is smooth. So to get these gray areas, you're going to put the detailed side attached to your stamp block, and then you'll come back and flip that around and you'll get the detail. So I am going to create this, and I am using Lost Lagoon, which is one of the colors that I believe is going to be coming back. It is definitely a color that is appearing in our designer series paper that will be available in the online information. If you were to place an order, you could get it now, at least in the designer series paper. Excuse me, if you sign up to be a demonstrator. Otherwise, you need to wait till March 1st, and then you can get it at least in the form of designer series paper. This color will be in there. So I'm just stamping the smooth image. And I like this color so much. It's an ink pad I actually hung on to. I don't often do that. When it was out as an in color, it included Rich Raspberry, or excuse me, Blackberry Bliss and Mossy Meadow. And there was a yellow color too, which I can't think of right off the top of my head, and an orange tone to it, to the 5 in colors that were available at the time. But Lost Lagoon is coming back. I am so excited. So speaking of Mossy Meadow, I've now flipped the stamp over, and so what I've got is the detailed side of that, and I'm just going to ink it up. And then all you need to do to line up these reversible stamps is, you could use your Stamparatus. Otherwise, you just need to line up the detailed image over the solid image that you just stamped. And then you get that two-toned look to it. So very easy to do. It's easy to line them up, and it allows you to get the 2 colors. Now, some of these items are going to have more detail. Obviously, doing the sea turtles, you're going to have a lot more detail than you might on, say, the sand dollar. But even the starfish, you can get that level of color. And so give it a try. Now, you may say, well, technically, can't we do that with all of our stamps? And the answer to that would be yes. However, the stamps have to be symmetrical, so that whether it's a regardless of which side you're stamping on, they have to be identical. And so not all of our stamps are going to do that. Yes, you can always get the solid shape, but you won't be able to then line up the detailed shape unless they're symmetrical. So just keep that part in mind. But on the ones that can do it, it's easy to get that image. So let's go ahead and get started. The card that I'm going to make is a diorama card. So when it stands up on a tabletop, it looks like this. And this is what the front of it looks like. And I'm using a sentiment from the Something Fancy stamp set. I'm choosing to use I Didn't Forget Your Birthday. I'm just stretching out the celebration. And that's because sometimes I might miss a birthday and be a little bit late with a card, and I want to be able to send it out. And so here's, again, that card. The nice thing about this fold is it will lay flat and fit into a regular size envelope when you're all done. So this is the card I really wanted to create. The card that I did yesterday, it wasn't working for me. I didn't like it. And so instead of posting my normal Make It Monday video, I'm actually creating a new video for you so you can see what it's supposed to look like. So let me start by giving you the measurements. I've got a 4.5 by 11 inch piece of cardstock. Excuse me, 4 1/4 by 11 inch. So just a half piece of cardstock. I've scored it at 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 10, and 10.5. And you want to make sure you're being very accurate on these measurements. So again, it's 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 10, and 10.5. And I should mention that there are videos out there that show you how to make this type of a card using 2 pieces of cardstock. This one uses just 1 piece of cardstock, and I got the measurement and layout for this card from Jackie Bullheis. So that is the first piece that we need, and then you will also need a piece of basic white cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 3 3/8 of an inch, and then a piece of, actually let me back up, a piece of basic white cardstock that will measure 3 1/4 inches by 4 inches. And you actually will need 2 of those pieces. However, based on the colors that I'm using today and how I'm making mine, I'm only going to have 1 piece of these on my card, just so that you're aware of that. And I thought I had cut this down to the correct size, but I did not. So let me just do that real quick. So it's 3 1/4 by 4. And this is going to be the space where you can write a note to the recipient. You know, however you want to handle that. Okay. So we've got our 4 1/4 by 11, and then we've got 3 1/4 by 4. Depending on how you set your card up, you're going to want 1 or 2 of these. You're going to see what I'm talking about as I go forward. And then you need a piece of designer series paper that measures 3 3/8 of an inch by 4 1/4 inch. And then 2 pieces of designer series paper that measure 3/8 of an inch by 4 1/4. Okay? Now, I mentioned I was going to show you how to create the background paper for this card. I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, it's showing up on camera here. It's got little white speckles on there, and it's just shades of the blue tone and the mossy meadow. And I actually created this cardstock myself to use. And so let me grab a piece of scratch paper. And then I've just, for the purposes of my card, I have taken a piece of 5 1/2 by 8 1/2 of the basic white cardstock. And that's because it's going to give me all of the pieces that I need to create my card. I am using 3 colors to make this. And the first color that I'm using is Pool Party. And I've just used the same brush for all 3 colors. So I start with my lightest color, which is Pool Party. And I am just going to go over this cardstock with my Pool Party. I've seen people kind of just do a bunch of circles or locations. For this particular card, I found that it worked best if I just sort of did all over in the colors that I wanted to use, and then I can go through and make some of the colored spaces darker, lighter, you know, however I want to do it. It just seemed to work a little bit better for this card. And again, the next color I'm using is Lost Lagoon. Now I'm jumping things a little bit again with the Lost Lagoon because this ink is not available and most likely will not be available until the new catalog, annual catalog, comes out. But I am so excited that I had to share this with you today and let you know about that, and that if you at least wanted this color back, if it was one of your favorites like me, you could start using it in the designer series paper that is available to demonstrators right now. But to you, if you're not a demonstrator, you'll be able to order the designer series paper that contains this color starting on March 1st. And then it's my hope that I'm reading all of the signals correctly, and that come the new catalog, you're going to be able to order the ink and other supplies, cardstock, and that type of thing. And I'm just coming back in with a little bit more Pool Party. And then green is kind of my accent color. I don't want that to be the primary focus. And I am using the Mossy Meadow ink pad on that. And again, I'm just using the same brush here. I've just, ooh, I wish I hadn't done that. You see me sometimes wiping stuff off on the side, and that's to avoid getting that big blob. And I was talking and not paying attention, and that's what happens. But that's all right, I can work around that, so it has not ruined what I'm working on. This might be a little bit too heavy on the green, so oops. You're welcome to come back with your other colors and soften that back up again. You just got to keep adding color until you get it to look how you want it to look. And I think for what we're doing today, I'm going to add just a little bit more of the Pool Party. And again, because I'm working down, I want to make sure I'm getting the majority of the color off of here so that I'm not contaminating my ink pads. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I needed it to do. It's just a little bit of color. All right, and so now we're done with the coloring phase. And the next thing you need to do is take your water painter, and I just have water in here. And I've seen people kind of do a flick like this off the lid, and honestly, that's never worked for me. So you can figure out your own technique, but what I want to do is get just a little bit of water onto this brush, and then I just start doing this. And it's just a tap with a wet brush. And at first you don't really see anything, and you're going to get different sized water droplets, and that's good. That's what you want to have happen. And you just keep repeating this process until you get the look that you want. If you get a spot that is super saturated, maybe the droplet comes down a little bit bigger than what you were anticipating and the water doesn't really absorb, all you need to do is stick a little tissue on it and it'll suck up that extra water and you'll be ready to go. And so you can kind of see that I'm getting different sized droplets now onto my cardstock. And again, you just keep doing this until it gives you the look that you're looking for. And the spots become whiter kind of the longer they sit. And now I've just created my own cardstock. And so like I've got one spot right there that there's a little bit of water sitting on top of it. All I need to do is take the tissue and stick it in there, and immediately it soaks up the water and goes through. So again, you're never going to have something that looks the same. Each time you do it, it's going to be a little bit different, and that's all right. And so on this, I've got a couple more spots that are a little bit bigger than I thought. So we're going to soak up that water. Okay. So each one is going to look a little bit different, and that's fine. You may have bigger splotches, littler splotches. You can't always control that. And then what I need to do is cut 2 pieces of paper from this that measure. One is going to be on the inside. So instead of doing the 2 pieces of basic white, I'm going to do just 1 piece. And then the other piece is going to be on the card front here and form these 2 strips. So the longest of those 2 pieces is 4 1/4. And I will give you these measurements once we have everything cut again, just so that you've got it. And because I want to try to minimize as much of that dark spot, I'm cutting that chunk off. So I'm cutting this at 4 1/4. That can be used on another project. And at 4 1/4, I need 1 piece that is 3 3/8 of an inch. And then I need 2 pieces that measure 3/8 by 4 1/4. So that's a little trickier, so I like to do it when I've still got my slightly bigger piece of cardstock to work with, just because I can hold it better. And then slide that up. Now, if you just use designer series paper, obviously you're going to be able to prep this all ahead of time and it won't take you quite as long to make the card. But because I wanted to show you this technique, it is taking just a little bit longer than it normally would. And then out of this last piece, I'm going to have it be the 3 1/4. This is going to go on the inside of the card, so it's what you'll see through that window. And then it needs to be 4 inches long. So again, I can cut a little bit more of that dark spot, and we are good to go. So now that we have all of our cardstock cut, let me go through and review measurements with you one more time. I've got my 4 1/4 by 11 piece of cardstock, scored at 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 4 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2, 10, and 10 1/2. And then I have a piece of basic white cardstock, which somehow you guys saw me cut this piece and I've already misplaced it. Oh, good grief. My desk is a little bit messy, but it's not that messy that I should be losing stuff. Okay, 3 1/4 by 4. Found it. All right. So a piece of basic white that's 3 1/4 by 4. And you're either going to need 1 or 2 of these pieces this size. I'm choosing to use the second piece as my designer series paper. So I've got 2 pieces that measure 3 1/4 by 4. And then 1 piece that measures 3 3/8 by 4 1/4, and 2 pieces that measure 3/8 by 4 1/4. And that's all that you need, plus any scraps that you're going to need for your the sentiments and the stamping that you're using. Now I have, just to save some time on this video, already cut out some of the seaweed images, the turtle, starfish. Not sure what all I'm going to put on this card, but I wanted to have them done. You do need to fussy cut these, and I didn't need you guys watching me fussy cut stuff, simply because, except for this little turtle here, which has got a sharp point, you know how to fussy cut. You don't need to watch me doing that. Okay, so let's go ahead now and start with the assembly of the card. And this is going to be kind of a 2-step process on how we start to assemble things, simply because we do have to do some die cutting to get this window before we start putting all the card together. And so I need to take this piece of designer series paper and put it on the front of the card. And I am going to use my adhesive. I'm sure you aren't going to believe me when I say, really, my desk isn't that messy. This was right in front of me. I just couldn't find it. And I'm just centering this in between the 2 score lines on the front of the card. Now, one thing that's important is the paper needs to line up really well with the top and bottom of your card. So if you've got a little bit like this that's hanging over, before you assemble the card, I'm going to recommend that you just grab your paper snips and trim it off so that it's flush with the top of your cardstock. And the reason for that is that you want the card to be able to stand up. And if this is a little uneven compared to the bottom, or the, one side of the card or the other, it isn't going to stand up straight. And so you may find that you need to do a little bit of trimming. I'm not sure I can get much more off of that. So this is going to have to be for sure the top of my card. Okay, I think I got it. I'll get rid of those scraps. And then what I'm going to do is take the second to the largest circle die, When I made my original card yesterday, I used the Diorama dies, and I thought that would be kind of cool, looking like the sea and that kind of thing. And again, it turned out to be not the right look. And so I went back to just the circle from the stitched, not the stitched dies, that's the old name for it. From the Stylish Shapes, I'm using the second largest of the circles. And so we just need to run this through our cut and emboss machine. So you need to have plate number 1, and then because this is a die, we're going to insert plate number 2, and then 2 of plate number 3. And you can tell these are well-used plates. And you're just going to place your die wherever it fits for how you're going to attach the other pieces of your card. And so I want mine centered left to right, with the bulk of the space being on the bottom of my card. And we are then going to finish our sandwich with the second plate and crank her through. And I have found, because I'm going through a couple of layers of cardstock, I do need to just run it back through. Apologize in advance for the shaking. But I wanted you to see this step because it is a key part to making the card. But again, because I'm going through 2 layers of cardstock, I did find that I needed to run it through my machine twice. Obviously, the basic white cardstock is thicker than designer paper on cardstock. And then you get this cool disc that you can do something with. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to be doing. Okay, the next step to making this card, once you get your circle cut, is I find it's a good place to start with scoring my fold lines. Now, because you want this card to be flexible, I recommend that you burnish going both directions on the fold. So normally we try to fold with the bumpy side in. With this one, because you want a little more give, I'm going to recommend highly that you fold it both ways and burnish the card going both directions. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And especially on these folds, the 1/2-inch folds towards the center of the card, you do want to make sure that you're really accurate on those measurements, because you want the card to line up as you're putting everything together. So this is one of those cards that looks hard to make, and it really isn't, but it does involve just a little bit of work. But the actual assembly of the card is super easy. And like I said, if you actually made your own, or used designer series paper, you would have saved some of the time that I spent creating the designer series paper that I created. So don't, if you need to save time, just use some of your already existing designer series paper. Goodness knows we have a lot of it. I just wanted to use this color, and I knew I was going to have to make my own in order for it to work right now. Okay, so now we have our card all scored, and you can kind of see how things are going to come together here to create the end shape. What we are going to do now is take this piece and attach it to the card. And so I am putting it just in the center, top to bottom, left to right. And normally we would tell you to do all of your stamping ahead of time, but because I want to make sure I get it centered on this circle, I'm actually waiting until I have it assembled. I've got my sentiment set up on my block. Normally I don't use a block this big for a stamp this size, but my other one was full. And I'm just using some of the Memento ink And if this is your first time watching my video, I always put my stamps onto my blocks crooked. And that way I can focus on laying my stamps down straight on my project rather than trying to line up a block, which may or may not have a perfectly straight image. For me, that just is a better way to get a straight image stamped onto my paperwork. You do what works best for you. Just letting you know I'm not crazy just slapping them on crooked like that. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is take these two 3/8 inch pieces of Designer Series paper. And we're going to put it here on the outside. And this is 4 1/4 in length, so it's going to match the length of the card. And so we're just going to stamp it, or center it left to right. And hopefully from top to bottom, we've already got it lined up right. And then we're going to, again, skip one and put the next one here. And again, just line it up at the top. So you can kind of see this starting to come together. Now I want to double check, and I've got just a titch hanging over on each of them. So I'm going to go ahead and hopefully trim this off better than I did the first time. Chances are you're going to have to do this most of the time when you make the card. I won't say all of the time because you might be a little more accurate in your measurements than I was, but it's an easy fix. All right, then the next thing that we're going to do is we need to tape down this piece and this piece. And because this is a card that's got a lot of movement to it, I like to use my tear-in tape. And so you want to put a piece, this is the center of the card, and it helps to tape these two pieces, kind of like when you're making one of the book type cards. And so I'm just putting tear-in tape on one side of the center, and then I'm also going to put it on this end piece here. Okay, and so obviously this one's going to be pretty easy. We can peel that off and just adhere it, and now those two pieces are stuck together, and they're not going to go anywhere with us, and it'll give us one of the pulls that we need. And then for this piece, again, we're going to flip the card over. Before you tape it down securely, just make sure that your ends are lined up. Oops. And then those two pieces are taped together. So now we have our fold. One of the things that I have found helpful is I tuck everything inside the card, and I just take my bone folder and I do one more kind of burnishing. It's a little crooked there. That's all right. No one is going to know. And that just gives me a sharper finish. I have found that little tidbit helps. So you can see how this is going to stand up. You can see that there's a bit of a shadow here as it's open, and when I lay it down, it'll lay flat and fit into a regular envelope. So now all we need to do is add our turtles and seaweed and some starfish to our finished card. I am actually popping up my sea turtle here just because I liked how that looked better. And so we will do that. And then the rest of these pieces I'm just adhering with regular adhesive. I had already put these together. So I'm just going to run a strip of adhesive across the back here and tape those about here. Now what you want to make sure is that you don't put the tape any further up the seaweed or whatever image that you're using, because I don't want tape showing through on these pieces, because when I lay it flat, it's obviously going to stick. Okay. And then I think I'm probably just going to do like I did on the other one, which is add a little starfish here. And as long as these images don't cross over these pieces, you're going to be fine because it's going to fit the other, you know, fit into an envelope without any issues, and it won't get bent because of how the card folds. The only other caveat is that you want to make sure that nothing goes below the card, because then it's not going to stand up. And that's part of what we want to do, is have this card standing up. So I'm going to attach my sea turtle here, and then I'm just going to do my little sand dollar right here. Oops, I didn't want that underneath it. And then I kind of thought that this card needed a little bit of pearl. So I'm using some of the opal rounds that are in the annual catalog. And just using those to pick up, oops, a little bit of color. I'll put one here. One up here. These kind of look like the water spots in a way. What I like about these is that they pick up the color kind of around them, but then they're also iridescent like an opal is. And all right, I'm just using my fingers on this. Sometimes that just is more work than it's worth. All right, so I've got 3 of those added to here, and then I like my turtle to have a little bit more shine to it, so I'm pulling out my Wink of Stella, and I'm brushing some of that onto the turtle here. And there is our finished card, with the exception of the piece on the back. And you'll notice I've got a crease here from when I ran it through the cut and emboss machine. Just hit the edge of the plate. Don't worry about that because you're covering it up. You could stamp on here if you wanted to. I'm leaving mine blank, and I'll just use that to write the note to the recipient, apologizing for being late for their birthday. And let's just center that in the open space, and the card is done. How cute is that? I love this fold. So one of the things I encourage is create a template. Use old cardstock, use designer series paper. When you come across a fold or even a layout that you really like, just use your scrap stuff to create a template, because then you can go back and easily recreate it at some point in the future. So this is using that fabulous sea turtle set as well as the Something Fancy sentiment set. The nice thing about this Something Fancy sentiment set is it contains, or doesn't contain, but it can be bundled up with the Something Fancy dies, which will fit these different sentiments. And remember, when you're looking at sentiments, that your dies don't just have to go this way, because that's how they come in the set. You could flip it this way, and some of these sentiments are going to fit in going this way as well. So don't just keep your mind open when you're looking at these. So here is our fabulous thing, our fabulous diorama card using the Sea Turtle stamp set. Hopefully I'm not jumping the gun and disappointing people by using the Lost Lagoon cardstock. I happen to have some of that left along with my ink pad. Keeping my fingers crossed that I'm interpreting all of the signals right, that this may be a color that comes back to us in the next annual catalog. If not, I apologize in advance for that, but for sure you can get designer series paper starting March 1st that includes that color, and if we're lucky, it'll then be in our annual catalogs. So thanks a lot for sticking with me. I know it's a slightly longer video because of creating my own splattered designer series paper, but keep in mind that you can speed this whole process up if you just use some of the designer's paper that you've got on hand. Take care, everybody. Thanks for your time. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Share it with anybody that you think might like to see this, and also add a comment if you want to do that too. All those things kind of help in the algorithms that YouTube and Facebook videos and things like that require, and it can help me reach more people. I appreciate any help I get on that whenever people take time to do that for me. So take care, everyone. If you have any questions, add a comment and I'll get back to you. Bye-bye.